Which popular movie do you secretly hate, but are afraid to admit it, fearing backlash from fans? I don't care for anything Marvel or DC, but couldn't escape them for over a decade. I'm so tired. My wife hates Monty Python and the Holy Grail, wondering if I should consider divorce. Have you tried explaining every joke to her in great detail? I hear that helps. Or farting in her general direction. The crap show that started with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I used to be a huge fan of Harry Potter. Those movies aren't that great either, and Rowling completely lost my respect with this obvious cash grab that demolished the original universe. It just makes me angry. Apparently people like it though, no clue why. Still haven't seen The Crimes of Grindelwald yet, but I consider this movie series the equivalent of the Lord of the Rings follow-ups, The Hobbit. We're all invested in this world. It's got a great cinematic history, not to mention the source material, but now we're viewing the B-reel. The Hobbit wasn't supposed to be directed by Peter Jackson, but he had to step in at the last minute. That couldn't have helped the creative process. I absolutely abhor The Greatest Showman. I think it's obnoxious, heavy-handed, and an unoriginal tool used to pander to modern audiences that crave a feeling of unique and special individuality. I remember telling my friends how much I hated it after I saw it, and my friend's husband got really upset with me and then proceeded to write a Facebook post about how I was simply out of touch because I didn't like the movie. Wild. So I stopped expressing my opinion of that movie. I 100% agree. It felt like one of the most hollow, manufactured, and soulless Hollywood musicals I've ever seen, and I generally enjoy Hollywood renditions of musicals, like Rent, Sweeney Todd, etc. The Greatest Showman had somewhat catchy tunes, but the music was auto-tuned to hell and back in a horrific way. The CG scenes taking place in 1910s New York City just looked like crap. The story made no sense. The only plus I could think of is the choreography, but it still wasn't anything special. My entire office praises the hell out of it and gets really defensive about anyone criticizing it, so I keep my mouth shut. Definitely. The actual soundtrack is great, but the film sounded so monotone, and kinda craps all over a woman who dedicated her life to charity and hated P.T. Barnum for very good reasons. The Hunger Games is probably my favorite book series, but the first 3 movies suck. I didn't watch the last one. The books became worse as they go, and same with the movies. The 3rd book was complete garbage. Jurassic World. I don't get how it became so popular. I secretly want the dinosaurs to win and eat all of the main characters. I'm actually certain a majority of people who see the movies want the dinos to win. I know I do, and that's enough evidence to support my claim. 100% go every time saying, this is it, this is the time that they let the dinosaurs eat everyone. Hate E.T., weird-ass alien creep. Used to have a nightmare about E.T. after seeing the movie as a child. He would be waiting out in the woods behind my house, and his finger would just be glowing, like he was waiting for me to go out there and have him transmit me to another dimension or something. Ugh, what a creep. Man, I thought I was the only one. I had many nightmares about E.T. as a kid. Gruesome ones. Even to this day, I still remember them. It's horrifying. Black Panther. It's an okay superhero movie. Can't believe people think it should have won Best Picture. Dude, try being a black person and saying that. I told some of my black family members that I thought it was a fine movie but wasn't like an Oscar contender. You could have thought I said slavery didn't happen or something. Thing is, I saw it twice, and let me say the problems with that movie are even more evident the second time. That said, I still found it to be very entertaining and a very important movie. I just don't think that it makes it great. Frozen and Frozen 2. Do you have an open fear of backlash from Frozen fans? They never let things go. Backdoor Sluts 9. They threw away all of the character development we saw in 8, and for what? A couple of fresh young backdoor sluts? The plumber in 9 could barely speak English, much less deliver a line convincingly. I'll be surprised if we ever see him on screen again. Now compare that to the inspired performance of the pool guy in Scene 3 of Episode 8. I can't believe 9 didn't kill the series, but I've heard that they're bringing back 8's director for Episode 16, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they will return the series to its artistic roots. Funny thing is, that this is actually valid commentary on the series. Ted. Agreed. It's a Family Guy episode stretched throughout a movie. I thought that was the joke. Avatar. I really don't understand everyone's love of it. I fully do not get why there will be a sequel. I just found it painful to watch. If you're talking about the Blue Alien one, I'm not sure any fans existed after it left theaters to give you a hard time. It also really just wasn't popular beyond being a really good tech demo and a 50-year-old dad fantasy. Exactly this. It was an incredible tech demo, but nothing more. I came out of the theater amazed, but if you asked me about the plot, I'd have no idea. I think there was a tree? Ready Player One. As someone very close to nerd culture, I saw it as cheap mass-market pandering with the same gormless nerd boy gets magic dream girl plot that demeans us all. It was just garbage. I read the book, and I can tell you that I was hoping that it would get better at the end or something. The biggest plot twist of the whole thing was me trying to figure out what your spoiler bar said because it was too long to say it doesn't. I really don't like Woody Allen. I find him pretty annoying. He's like the Bachelor in every Woody Allen movie. They're like, this guy's a great catch. And then you see him, and it's just a blob of corduroy. John Mulaney. Came to see if anyone said The Lord of the Rings. I'm very pleased to see it not be mentioned, but The Hobbit, screw that. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I read The Hobbit twice and was so thrilled for the movies to come out. The first is the only movie to this day I've seen on opening night. I was so disappointed. It was way too animated and catered too much to younger kids in my opinion. Didn't even bother with the second one. They just don't feel like they're part of the Lord of the Rings universe that PJ perfected with the original trilogy of films. Mr. Bean. Like, I get it, but don't want to watch more than 30 seconds. I find it irritating purely because worldwide that's what Rowan Atkinson is known for, instead of the incredibly clever Blackadder, of which he is the titular character. Because Mr. Bean doesn't rely on witty dialogue or uniquely British humor or cultural references, so the humor translates worldwide. The Notebook. I don't get what's so romantic about a guy hanging on a Ferris wheel to make you go on a date with him. That's basically blackmailing. It's a movie about someone not being able to make up their mind. She can choose the kind and thoughtful war hero with money who loves her, or the kind and thoughtful war hero without a lot of money who loves her. They were both great dudes. Pick one. You're not a martyr, lady. It drives me crazy that people think this is the best love story ever. And the whole, it's totally romantic to argue constantly. Screw that. Bird Box. It really seems like someone thought up the cool premise and then they tried to force a script into it. Although I gotta say, the scene with the parking sensors in the car was super cool. It's not a new premise. It's basically a better version of The Happening. All of Will Ferrell's movies. Will Ferrell has a brand of absurdist humor that either appeals to you or you outright despise it. I hate Avatar with a passion. Unobtainium? Seriously? That's my favorite part. Anytime I can fit unobtainium in a sentence, I go for it. I really didn't enjoy La La Land as much as everyone liked. It was so all over the place and the last few minutes were the best part. Decent music, didn't like the story. I feel like people who like musicals often dislike La La Land. I have never seen a musical before and went into La La Land with zero expectations and really liked it. I especially thought that the last scene was an excellent twist. The movie starts and ends really well, but I think the middle where they fly around and live together is pretty boring. Gravity. I hated that movie. I work for an aerospace firm that makes stuff for the ISS. That movie felt like a reason to get Sandra Bullock in her skimpies. Space isn't sexy. Space is full of a rat's nest of cables and 30-year-old equipment that miraculously is being kept on life support by an extremely dedicated group of engineers. That, and what the heck was that satellite debris doing in the same orbit as the ISS? Nearly the entire script was, Sandra Bullock hyperventilates for 2 hours. I never understood the appeal. I'm not afraid to clearly state my opinion of anything. I don't like any of the current crops of action movies. Is the action bad, or is the plot just extra stupid? In my case, I miss the unapologetic action and violence. I'm not in for the gorefest, but I must admit I found Dread, the one with Carl Urban, kind of violence refreshing. The clean violence you see now in movies irritates me to no end. Except maybe in superhero movies, because let's be honest, most of those fights would end with ripped off arms and whatnot. La La Land. It was just a love letter to musicals of the past. Well done, but not groundbreaking or particularly memorable in and of itself. All of my friends who had never really seen musicals went crazy for it, and I couldn't stand hearing the songs from it played. I love La La Land for its cinematography. So many of the shots are beautifully arranged color-wise, and the songs are good too, if not incredibly memorable. As a pianist, I loved watching Ryan Gosling's scenes with him playing, whether that's actually him or not. My complaint comes from the fact that the movie felt like it should have taken place in the 70s or 80s, and the modern-day setting feels out of place and shoehorned. Also, the leads are a strange choice, but they pull it off. Definitely not groundbreaking or particularly memorable, but very entertaining nonetheless. Also, I hate Seb. He's an idiot and everything he does and feels is wrong, but that's just me. Everything Tom Cruise. I just can't stand watching anything where he's in it. It just gives me this intense sense of discomfort, like the uncanny valley. That's the reason I haven't watched Edge of Tomorrow, despite loving the book and manga. I hate him too, but Edge of Tomorrow and Minority Report are solid films. I give those a pass. So is Vanilla Sky, A Few Good Men, Tropic Thunder. Not quite hate, but Black Panther was not all that great. It was a fun movie with a decent plot and some good enough acting, which describes most of what Marvel has done. It had a better than average villain, but that does not make it groundbreaking. Wonder Woman's ending was incredibly bad. It ruined the movie. DC is a crap show, and for most of the movie, Wonder Woman was looking like a good change of pace, but that ending ruined the ideological depth in the movie. Inception is okay. I don't hate it, but it gets more praise than it deserves. Simply put, they could have done a lot more than make the dream world feel like a dream. Dreams are truly inconsistent, illogical, and fluid. The movie played with small bits of this, but ultimately left the dreams more or less the same as waking life. The original Star Wars trilogy are very fun movies. The universe created is cool, the themes are clear, and they stand up in time due to the number of practical effects. However, the praise they often get is overstated. They are pretty basic stories, they rehash a lot of old ideas, and they have more campiness than people admit. I love these movies, but they are overstated by many. I loved the Chris Pine monologue in Wonder Woman about how Ares isn't behind this and people are just bad. I thought that was brilliant, that war could not be ended by defeating one guy. And then she fights Ares, who looked ridiculous by the way, and all the fighting stops. They set up something so unique and then just shot it in the face. Exactly. They had an interesting story to tell, but botched it instead with ham-fisted CGI action. I have no issue saying this, but I think this thread is perfect. I hate Harry Potter. I did not expecto this Patronum. Ready Player One was horrendous and should have been offensive to anyone who's ever played a video game, something which Spielberg has clearly never done. I stopped watching after that scene where he just drove backwards on the racetrack to reveal the secret area. Like none of these millions of gamers playing every day would have ever tried something so crazy. I don't even consider myself a hardcore gamer, but that was just really dumb. That's a great example. 10 minutes into playing Mario Kart with 3 buddies and someone is driving backwards. But teams of people trying to find ways to beat it didn't try it once for 5 years. Mamma Mia. Can't stand that godforsaken movie. I've given it 2 chances and still no dice. I will never see the hype in it. Wine Mom fantasy movie. You leave my mom alone, she's an angel. I don't understand the appeal of Pulp Fiction. Am I missing something? As someone who saw it in its original theatrical run, I can say that the combination of low, pulpy subject matter, hitmen, graphic violence, drug dealers, etc., highly idiosyncratic dialogue, the Royale with cheese scene, for example, and then novel concept of using non-linear storytelling outside of art house movies was unique. Lots of people were talking about the movie. Remember, no social media back then, and it just became one of those movies you had to see to be culturally current. Also, every party and bar I went to was playing the soundtrack CD. I still can't listen to Jungle Boogie or Girl You'll Be a Woman Soon because I heard them so much in the mid-90s. Jump to 20 to 25 years later, Tarantino's influence has been so pervasive and persistent that everybody is making non-linear puzzle-style genre films or TV series with copious dialogue and witty banter, reviving some of the old 70s and 80s actors' careers to boot. But back in 1994, it was something fresh, and Tarantino's voice sounded unique. I'm not a super fan, but I do find parts of it to be enjoyable, rewatchable, and the script is still full of great, endlessly quotable lines. 2001: A Space Odyssey. The book was 5 million times better than the movie. The parts of the book with Moonwatcher were actually compelling and fleshed out. The reason for Hal's turning on the humans in the book was much more interesting. The book is great and better at explaining what is going on, but the film truly is a work of art. I love how it was interpreted in 1968. If the film was made today, it would be a boring, exposition-laden CG fest. I doubt it would even get made. Every single Adam Sandler movie. Can't stand him. Talking in a creepy baby voice doesn't make you funny. That's hardly unpopular, I would say. I'm scared to say this. Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm a massive Queen fan and love Freddie Mercury, but had some issues with the movie. I thought Rami Malek did an amazing job, and I walked away from the movie feeling great and inspired, but I did have my qualms. It could have been better, but I felt like it got the story across and I got my ticket money's worth. Disney Star Wars or fan service pandering with more plot holes than a spaghetti strainer. Wow, truly a brave comment here. There's not a post about this on r/movies literally every week. Sausage Party. All critics liked it because it had meaning, but I thought it was an immature, obnoxious experience. Yes, I spent money to see it in theaters because a friend of mine and I were in the mood to see a movie, but the best part was when the douche yells, "That was a bad pun and you know it!" Otherwise, like seriously, sentient food, guys. Napoleon Dynamite. My god, what a dumb movie. What a polarizing movie. I think people either hate it with a passion or love it with a passion, depending on humor styles they like. Well, here it goes. The Godfather. Growing up, it seemed like it was everyone's favorite movie and hyped to the highest heavens. I think it's even #1 on AFI's Top 100 list. When I would reply that I hadn't watched it yet, I would get retorts of, "OMG, why not? It's the best movie ever!" all the time, followed by looks of disappointment and disbelief. When I finally did see it, I thought it was a decent movie, but nothing really worth all that hype. I've said it many times before, regardless of the backlash. The Nolan Batman trilogy got worse with every subsequent installment. Batman Begins is an amazing film. The Dark Knight suffers many plot holes, oversaturation of characters, and a lackluster, messageless finale. No, the Joker didn't have a point. Dark Knight Rises is just plain bad all over. Unbelievable villains, no sense of time progression, glaring gaps in the narrative, and a closing scene that invalidates the whole damn movie. It went from excellent to disappointing to outright crap. The Transformers movies. After rewatching them, I realize how bad they are. With most fight scenes consisting of random explosions and sparks everywhere, they just look stupid. Recently, I watched Bumblebee and see how much better it is without Michael Bay. Neither of those opinions are unpopular, just saying. The Polar Express. I hated it from the first time I saw it and ended up having to sit through it every year around Christmas because kids are around and everyone loves it. The CA is in the uncanny valley, making all the characters creepy, and the whole "you have to believe" nonsense is completely without meaning. Believe in what? Santa? Why? No reason. Just a stupid film. Hate it. Started to watch Roma because of all the Oscar buzz about it. I certainly empathized with the main characters, and I agreed with what appeared to be the developing political and humanitarian message, but I only watched half of it because nothing about it said superior movie making or exceptional acting. It was just a pretty good movie that fragrantly stroked my liberal bias. I think Roma was primarily lauded for its cinematography and its representation of indigenous women, also not presenting a negative stereotype of Mexico, which is rare. Interstellar. That movie would have been good if it ended 40 minutes before it ended. But then you would have missed the whole bit about how black holes are powered by love or whatever. MCU Next Phase. Can't they just end it with the Avengers Endgame? Why the need to make more in a short span of time? Can't they just wait like 4 to 6 years after Endgame to start a new phase? Gosh. There's this thing called money, maybe you've heard of it. Pacific Rim. It's got abysmally bad writing and characters to me. The thing is, people are like, well, just turn off your brain and watch the robots fight giant monsters, and I would absolutely love to do it, but the movie is like 90% crappy dialogue and story. They had those awesome robots from other countries with interesting weaponry and styles, and they died instantly in the first battle. Don't even get me started on the sequel, which is pretty much universally disliked, but people still talk about the first one like it's this awesome giant mech movie, but the giant mechs are like 5% of the screen time, I feel like. The Shape of Water. I found it to be boring, predictable, and at times weird, just for the sake of being weird. I almost turned it off before it was over, but kept thinking, this won Best Picture, surely it will get better. Nope. I have no idea how it won so many awards. The Hangover. It was hyped so much by my social circle and the media. There was no way it could have lived up to expectations, and it fell so short of funny in almost every scene it's hard to fathom people actually laughing. It's just so blah. Speaking of which, Hangover 2 was a rehash of the first, so even the shock humor wasn't as funny the second time around. Hangover 3 was just garbage. Saw. I've never become angry from watching a movie before Saw. The acting was so terrible, the movie was so cheesy, and it was so far from scary it was laughable. As in, when I wasn't outwardly angry at the terrible writing and the performance of the actors, I was dying laughing of how horrendous the movie was. I've said things in the past about it, and people have argued like crazy with me. That's fine, to each their own, but now I just keep quiet about how terrible Saw is. I always thought it was supposed to be cheesy and bad. The Breakfast Club. Entirely for personal reasons, it reminded me of times in high school when I would have a good interaction with a fellow student in a different clique than me, expect to actually have formed a friendship with them, then they would continue to act like I didn't exist. I just didn't buy that these kids could actually change after a few hours together, since it hadn't happened to me in the past. Yeah, but wasn't that the idea though? My take on the ending was that they all kinda knew they would never speak to each other again. Fast and Furious. All of them. A Star is Born. It's not a bad movie, but it's been made 4 times. It's easy to get right. That movie was alright, not amazing. It did make me cry though, when, spoiler alert, Bradley Cooper's character cooks the steak for his dog before going to hang himself. That one scene made more of an impact on me than the whole rest of the movie. Late to the party here, but I hate Elf, with a passion, and my family is fully aware of it and not so subtly plays it every day leading up to Christmas for a few weeks. Will Ferrell in tights creeped me out. Will Ferrell as a grown man but having the mental capacity of a 7-year-old really creeped me out. Will Ferrell in the ladies' room was cringeworthy. I thought the premise was stupid, the story beyond corny, and I didn't find any part of it sweet. I did enjoy the snowball machine gun. I'm not heartless. Inception. It's like a fever dream of a graduate art student who's told his senior project is to make an action film. No, you just need to watch it more than once to understand it. It isn't Primer. This is a film that thinks so little of its audience that it has to define catharsis. When you're making a $200 million blockbuster meant to reach a wide audience, you're going to have to dumb it down for some people. I don't like the new Pixar movies. Finding Dory and Incredibles 2 were nowhere near as good as the first ones, and the standalone films like Coco aren't memorable like the old Pixar standalones were. I also didn't like Toy Story 3 very much. I loved 1 and 2. I thought it was just way too serious and dark and didn't have enough humor to even everything out. I don't have high hopes for Toy Story 4. Could it be you've grown out of them? A little bit of a different answer, but I generally do not like modern movies that are in black and white. I get the idea, but it just takes me out of the movie. I end up focusing on why the director chose to film in black and white instead of just watching the movie. The one exception was Schindler's List, but Nebraska, Roma, The Artist, etc. were all too difficult for me to focus on the actual content of the movie over the aesthetics of the black and white film. I think the beauty of Schindler's List is that it's in black and white and it's a period piece, so it can never look dated. I don't hate it, but I think Captain America: The Winter Soldier is massively overrated. I mean, some people call it one of the best films ever, but I just found it to be boring and forgettable, like many MCU films. I also felt similar to The Dark Knight, but then again I haven't watched it in ages, so maybe I should reassess it. I personally enjoyed all Captain America movies. The first one was like an old 1940s propaganda film where Captain America was just pure good, and the Red Skull was just a purely bad guy. Pretty basic, but it set Captain America as a guy with unwavering moral principles. The Winter Soldier is where these idealistic notions of good or bad become broken down. I heard somewhere that the second Captain America movie was basically Steve Rogers becoming a witness to the de-idolization of America. All of a sudden, America is no longer taking the role of pure good, so Captain America had to stick to his morals to save the day. In Civil War, Captain America's morals are put to the test, and we can see where his true character is. Sure, he wants to protect his friends, but that comes at the cost of his perceived honesty, lying to Tony Stark about his parents, and leads him to fight other heroes. This change in Steve Rogers' costume in Infinity War exemplifies this shift. All black instead of the flag colors. He was no longer the red, white, and blue patriot of the past. The moral ambiguity of this new time and the breakdown of his own ideals make him a darker person. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have an opinion you'd like to share, please feel free to do so in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when our next video is uploaded. For more great videos like this one, please stop by the channel and check out another. Thanks again, and see you next time.